My story starts like a lot of people probably here. I grew up in a Christian home. I was taken to church every weekend. I loved church. Learned a lot, learned the songs and Bible quizzing, and even when I was 8 or 9 years old, I was voted to be the pastor of children's church. So there was weekends that I prepared a sermon. I can remember my stepmother and father always saying that they knew God had a call on my life, and that was, they couldn't wait to see me grow up and fulfill, the calling on my life. So I made it through high school, and things were fine. I went to church all the time. There was no deep relationship, though, with Jesus. Got out of high school and then moved out on my own, and that's when the lack of having a relationship really began to manifest. Began partying right after high school. Took up a lot of my time, just to say the least. I would take things to stay awake so that I could work, and then I'd take things to fall asleep so I could sleep. And that built up for a couple years until I had an overdose and pretty much laid almost lifeless on my couch, and no one even knew what was wrong, that I was there and that I had a problem for, I think, 4 or 5 days. So when I woke up out of that, I realized that I had a problem. I realized that I was lucky that I was still alive, and the next day went down and decided to join the Army, and that would help clean me up. That was the answer. I did not need to hang around with those same people I was hanging around with, that I should get out of the area, and I'd be all right if I could get out of the area. So went through military training, went into Germany. Needless to say, you go to Germany and you get into that nightlife scene, and I just drank a lot. I mean, I drank all the time. So was moved out of Germany into Texas, and that's where things even got worse. One thing that comes to my mind that I'll never forget is riding with a friend. One night, I worked in a nightclub, and I would sell a lot of drugs at that time. And driving down the road, and he was looking for something to smoke in a bag that was sitting beside him, and we swerved just a little bit, and it wasn't a big deal, but all of a sudden there was sirens behind us. Well, we were pulled over and told to get out of the van, and when I got out of the van at that time, I had 98 hits of LSD in my pocket. In Texas, you have 1 year mandatory per hit of LSD if they find it on you. There's no questions asked. And at that point, I really saw my life flashing before my eyes. And they searched the van, and the bag that my buddy was looking for that had stuff in it. There is no question that God kept his hand on us that night, because they didn't find it. They told us we could get back in the van and leave. And again, the next day I said to myself, I got to get out of this area. It's the people I'm hanging with. Never once in my mind, never once did it cross my mind that the problem was me. So fast forward another 15 years later, and I'm back in it again, and this time it's with crystal meth. And this addiction had me so far as to, even when I had a family and had kids, that was still the most important thing in my life. And I even had cars that were repossessed, and I would walk home from work and look for a way to get some money for just a little more, just a couple more days. And another thing that sticks out of my mind that I know God saved me from was I went to a home. I had never been there before to buy some things off of those guys. Was there about a half hour and got in my car, and as I was pulling away, there was several speeding cars that came past me. I was about 3 minutes from being in a home that was raided by the FBI, and all of them went to jail, and I was just driving home, never knew. So there is no question that there was protection around me this whole time. So with the loss of a marriage and with everything really falling apart, and went to a Promise Keepers meeting with my father. And I knew that day when I stepped out of the car that I needed rest, and I knew that it was me. And I went inside, and the man speaking looked up and was dressed as a Roman soldier, saying, "They've got me crucifying another one of these Jews, and this one says he's coming back in 3 days. If he doesn't come back in 3 days, they'll never speak his name again." And I could not breathe. And at that moment, I knew what my calling was. And I got on my knees there at Nationwide Arena and gave my life back to Christ, and went home that night and took a bag of weed and a bag of ecstasy. And as I walked towards the garbage can outside, living on my own in a little apartment after I'd lost everything else, I thought to myself, well, I could sell this stuff for about 150 bucks. And I realized, buddy, it's done. You're done. It does you no good. And I threw it in a garbage can, and that was my turning point. That was the change in my life. My name is Brad Landis, and God gave me a second chance.